And that's good. All right. Yeah. I was just gonna look at the calendar and see who's.
Oh, we got Lauren here. Hey, Lauren.
How are you guys?
Hey,
Good.
how you doing?
Hey, glad you made it.
All right.
So, what time zone are you in, Lauren?
I'm in Eastern, but I'm a night owl, so.
All right.
drive my husband nuts. Like, go bed. Can't. So.
Well, we'll try to keep this to an hour. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that worked.
All right.
Sorry to not be at last week. So I've had kind of a crazy couple of weeks. So sorry about that.
No worries.
Oh, it's okay.
Should I get started? You guys, because I think I'm first.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I think this is all pretty basic stuff. So I'll just go through it quickly. You guys have questions, stop me, and I'll go slower. JavaScript has variables. Are you guys all familiar? Is anyone not familiar with JavaScript?
I've taken one JavaScript class.
Okay.
I've taken just the one too.
Okay. So you guys probably already know what variables are.
Mm-hmm.
Starts with a letter, usually case sensitive. Arrays have multiple variables. Use a var keyword just like when you're doing a variable. And there's two ways to construct an array. We got you can do it like this, or the array literal, which is a preferred way. You can also do like a new array, which creates an array object, but it's slower, harder to read, and so the first way is preferred. So access arrays by their index. So in my list of cheeses here, cheeses zero is actually a first index. So
Yeah.
cheeses 0 is Wensleydale. Cheeses 1 would be Pecorino Romano. You can add to arrays, so cheeses 4 Stilton would add to the end of it. You can create an empty array. You don't have to add stuff right away when you create it, and then add later. So if you take the array name and dot length, will give you the length of the array. So like cheeses.length would be equal to 4 or whatever, however many items are in the array. You can sort the array. That just puts all this array items in alphabetical order, or if your array items are numbers, put them in numerical order. There's a for loop. You create a counter variable, so usually I use just I equals 0, and then the second part is how high you want to go up to. So cheeses.length is how high I want to go to, and then I++ increments it every time. So this one would just alert every cheese that's in my array name, or my cheese array. Another loop, I've never used this one. I used it this week for my assignment, but I've never ever done it before. There's a do while loop. You have to make sure you create a counter first, and then you have to make sure that you increment the counter, or else your loop goes on forever. And I actually made that mistake in my assignment. I had to stop the page. So, and then while is, how many times you. That's the stop condition when you stop the
Yeah.
Associated arrays, there's not really associated arrays in JavaScript. Like PHP has associated arrays. They're actually objects. But instead of numbers, like fish properties 0 and fish properties 1, like fish properties breathes, like you'd have like a string inside the brackets instead of a number. And then you can access that. You can use that like the string inside, or you can do like the dot notation. So fish properties dot num eyes is the exact same thing as fish properties, and you have brackets and then quotes, num i's. So conditional statements, if you guys done JavaScript before, you probably know these, like if. So my example, first name equals Bob, and so I'm checking to see if the first name equals Frank. If it is, I'm going to alert hi Frank, but we know it's not because it's Bob. And else if first name equals Bob, then it's going to run this code, which is going to, and it's never going to get to this code, the last else, because it's already met that condition up here. Functions in JavaScript, there's a couple ways of doing it. I just, to the easy one, how you create a function, use a function keyword, the name of the function, parentheses, and then you got the curly braces, and the code goes inside the curly braces. And then you can add parameters. I'll just show here. So inside the parentheses here, I have parameters. So when you call the function, you'd have to put variables or some kind of value inside the parentheses, and then return is how you spit out a value from the function. So, you know, I have a first is can't, last is roper, and then I use a function to spit out my full name. So that's pretty much it for my PowerPoint. Is there any questions or anything you guys want me to go over, or?
No, I'm
No?
okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty simple. I think out of the three we're doing tonight, this is probably the most basic.
Yeah.
So you're the one who posted that that website.
Yeah, that's just
Cheeses.
My favorite
Yeah.
cheeses.
yeah, my favorite cheeses.
So how come the code looks so complicated? Like when I look at it, it's like
Okay. I have a specific question about the code. So
yeah,
the
because
first part,
it kind of just looks like all text to me.
yeah. So my first part is just like placeholders, HTML placeholders, and then so this is demonstrating using a variable,
Mm-hmm.
and so and then the document. This is putting this variable, my favorite cheeses, just putting that right there.
Mm, okay.
And then I just write an array. I just like demonstrating different things you can do with JavaScript,
Oh, okay.
adding to an array. I mean, did you have a specific question on any of that, or?
No, I was just kind of confused because normally I see numbers instead of text and like arrays and stuff, and so I was just kind of confused
Oh, okay.
because what I've experienced is just numbers.
Okay, so like right here, cheeses.length, it is a number. So cheeses.length, that would be 4 right now, where it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing cheeses 4 equals camembert. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And then I did use a number here, so my favorite is cheese. Cheese is 1
Number
to
one.
get that value right there.
Yeah.
Anything else I can answer on that, or?
Oh no, that's good. That was just...
Okay.
So you didn't have to do length plus 1 to stick it on the end? It would.
Oh, they add to the end of array?
Yeah. When you did.
Yeah, so that was
length.
Yeah. I think there's also and I don't remember. There's a function like cheeses.push parentheses, and that also adds to the, like I could have done I could have done that instead.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. Those two lines they do the same thing.
So is something like push built into the JavaScript language? Like pushes.
Yeah.
Is that what, a built-in function or method, or what would you call that?
Yeah, method.
Yeah. Cool.
Push. I've never seen that one before.
Okay, any other? Is that it? You got any other questions for me, or?
No, it's pretty simple.
So Keith, you're next, right?
Yeah. So same thing. Let me see if I can get my PowerPoint. Pretty simple. You guys can, after each slide, I'll just ask if you have any questions. I think I did mine a little bit wrong. I was a little bit confused about exactly what mine was. So I was reading and it said, let's see, where is it? I'm trying to find my canvas. One second. Anyways, I ended up saying what a function is too. But I think mine was more specifically about how to create an object using a function. But that's what I was confused in. But there wasn't really any clarification in the class. There's literally it just tells you what.
So you have more of a software development background, right?
Me?
Yes.
Not exactly.
Okay. About this.
I've done all the classes, you know.
Okay.
So like I have a basic functional knowledge of how software languages work, but I would never deem myself an expert. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen now. Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Can everyone still see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
So can everyone see this slide?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
because one time I did this and everyone could just see my first slide and nobody said anything till the end of my presentation. I was like, oh, you can't see anything I was talking about. Okay, so what I did was JavaScript objects, just kind of going over what they are. So a JavaScript object, and I like to go as simple as possible when you're learning about any kind of coding language. So JavaScript objects are variables. So if anyone knows what anything about software languaging programs, we're always just creating variables that hold values. So a variable can be an object, like a car, apple, or mouse. It can be anything. So the example that I did was there's a variable mouse, and the value of it is it's a house mouse. And so that's just an example of assigning a single value to it. Variables can also carry many different values. And so did again a variable mouse, and I assigned gender, male, and color white. And it's just important to note that values are identified as the name, value. That's how you would write it. That's how the syntax is. So I didn't go into every example of how to create a variable, but this is very basically how you would create an object, which leads me to my next slide. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Nope.
We good.
Okay. So then the next thing is how do you create an object in JavaScript? So you need to define your object. Here's an example. Once again, I use the variable mouse, equal sign, and then you can assign it to type house mouse, color, white, gender, male. So I'm once again assigning multiple values to that variable mouse. And that's how you create an object. Once you're done doing that, the object has been created. Does anyone have any questions about how to create an object in JavaScript?
No, I have a question about your mouse. Did you draw that?
I did. I'll just do them.
That's awesome. Good job. I love it.
No, I actually created a mouse. That's the cool thing about programming. Any other questions?
No.
So there's a few other ways that you can create objects, but that's basically how it's done. Is you just initialize an object by assigning values to it. Okay, so the next part is properties. What is the properties of a JavaScript object? The name and value in JavaScript are the properties of an object. So when we're assigning the name and value, those are the properties. So when we refer to properties, that's what it is. So I just made a little chart from our previous example. So for example, property is the type, and the property value I assigned house mount. Color, it's white, and gender, it's male. Does anyone have any questions about what properties are?
Good.
Okay. Now we move on to methods. So what are methods? Methods are actions that can be performed on objects. They are stored in the properties of an object as a function. So using my same example, at the very bottom, as you can see, I named my method the statement. I don't know why I did. I just did. And so then I created the function to return and then this type is this color and this gender. So if I was to run that method, it would print out that the house mouse is white and male. So that's what how a method works.
Okay.
One second. Locked my wife out on accident. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about what a method is?
Nope.
Okay. And then there's also, there's multiple ways of how it's created, and also there's built-in methods that you can draw from in Java, like the push method. Okay, so then that leads us to functions, which I think it was asking me how to create objects with a function. I was confused to define what a function is. So the example I did was just like you could have first donation, and then you could have income and fast offering, and then you could have it do some basic simple math after someone like inputs on it. So let's say, you do $100 for your income, then it would just multiply it or divide it. And so you'd have 10 plus whatever your fast offering is, and it would return that value back to you. So functions are really useful. Does anyone have a question about what functions are?
No.
All right, you guys are doing great. So inheritance. So because I've been mainly working with Java, with inheritance in Java, you have parent object and you have child object. So anything that a parent has, the child will inherit it. So any of the values that it has, any of the properties that it has, they'll be inherited. In JavaScript, it's called prototyping. That's what I came across. So it's basically just the same thing. And the example that I did was just a way to add a prototype to our variable mouse that we already had after it was already created, because it's just taking all the properties that the variable mouse had and just adding to it. So that's just simply what inheritance is. It's having objects inherit the properties of another object. Does anyone have any questions on that? I feel like I might have been not super clear on that. No, we're all good?
Nope. All good.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so that leads us to this one, which I was researching, and I didn't get my head totally wrapped around what instantiation is. a little bit confusing to me, so I'm still doing research on that. But so then I flip it around on you guys. What is it? Do you guys know what it is? Anyone who's familiar with JavaScript?
Probably.
Yeah, I could.
Who said that? I'll defer to whoever was talking.
Oh, I can show an example of that.
You can?
Yeah, I can. Let me.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Okay, so you guys see this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can't see you guys shaking your head because I'm looking at my text editor.
Well, no,
Okay, so I got the object constructor. Use a constructor to define what kind of object it is, and then instantiating is just using this function to create an object. So, so I have this function here that defines what a cheese object is, like a default cheese object, and then var manchego is like, I'm creating a new cheese object, and it's taking all these values and plugging them in here.
Oh, okay.
So, okay.
So it's kind of like initializing.
Yeah, it's kind of like initialize. Yeah, just
Just different words.
You're making an instance of the cheese object.
Create. Yeah, making an instance of a cheese object.
Okay. Well, that's not as complicated as I was. Maybe I got
I struggled that too. I had to look that one up on Google, and I think I found it on W3 Schools or something. And
yeah,
it's not as complicated as I thought.
The hard part is visualizing like a use case scenario where you'd actually do that. Once I kind of, like, for example, take Twitter, and you have your phone app on Twitter, and they try and push to make it scale. They push a lot of the computing onto the client side, right? So their servers can just puke out information. So you go try and look at tweets, and it just spews back an object that has all the data for 100 tweets. And then on the client side, it has to loop through that JSON or however they deliver it back and grab each individual tweet and make a tweet object out of that big blob of data. And then it can then format it and style it appropriately, all that kind of stuff. So that's where you would use instantiation on the client side to actually do something with it. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Good job, Keith.
Yeah.
And I'll get my some coding examples up on my GitHub later, and I can share that with all of you.
Okay.
Sounds good.
It won't look as good as Kent's, but it'll be something.
He's on the ball, man. He's already getting stuff graded. So.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I guess.
To be clear, we're all teaching like 3 lessons per meeting, while also trying to master all the stuff that's on that list of stuff that he wants us to master.
Yeah. Maybe I'll.
I'm sorry, my brain's a little bit fried with 3 classes. So
maybe if you don't mind, I'll share my screen. Figure out how to do that. I've forgotten. Okay, there it is. All right. Okay, let's do this so we're not getting psychedelic there. All right, so there is our schedule. We'd had it so we were all teaching 3 like this week 1, but then I adjusted the schedule so that we would teach 4 per week. And that would allow everybody a chance to still teach 4 times with the exception of Jacob. So and what that means is as you can see, we go down through everything. So by week 6, we'll have covered everything and loop back and start over again. So that'll allow us to kind of
master everything,
elaborate, and I'm totally open to if we've got the first 6 down and want to push these down into here or whatever and really hit the last stuff, that, you know, however we want to do it's fine. But that's what I did to add you two. So hopefully that everybody's okay with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
You changed the schedule?
Yes.
You're gonna have to send me a copy of that one again, okay? The new
Yeah.
one.
So you still have ownership. So everybody still has rights to that document. So
Okay.
you can pull it up and do whatever. And if you're going to be gone a certain week and you want to switch to somebody, feel free to change this, you know, as needed. So.
And you sent that link to Lauren, right?
So the one thing I don't like about the Canvas interface is it's like you cannot see the actual email. So if I say, hey, I want to share this, and I try and use the directory, there, BYU Idaho, there's like 4 Lauren Allreds, and I didn't know which one it was.
Gotcha.
You know, so and using things up. Anyway, so I need your actual BYU email address because Canvas obfuscates it so much that I couldn't find it. So that way, I'll actually make you an owner to this as well. So
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, my last name's kind of like Smith in Mormon world. So there's a lot of all reds.
It drives me nuts because there's a few things I don't like. Here's Canvas, you know, and if you go to write something, I wish you could say, you know, just type out group 3. Sorry, just do group 3 and have it go to all of us, but it doesn't, you know. And if you pick you, I can't figure out what your email address is. So anyway.
No worries, I can send you it.
All right. Okay, so let me fire up PowerPoint and let's do it. Okay. So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And it's just a very simple syntax that it's a great way to standardize the exchange of data. Everybody's seeing my slide, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. So one of the things that will be helpful in understanding JSON is to remember the world in which JSON lives, which is the web. That's the only place it was made to do anything. And you got to keep in mind that everything that moves between a web browser and a server somewhere in the sky is text. That's what one of the T's is in HTTP, right? So everything that goes back and forth is text. The request headers, the pictures, everything is text, and that's why JSON is text. What does JSON look like? It kind of doesn't really matter because, fortunately for us, we don't have to hard code it. There's an example of it over here, but the fact is, and it is human readable, but nobody will have to be handwriting and hand forming JSON unless you're just testing in a lab. So the 2 functions in this in JavaScript are JSON.stringify and JSON. So you can convert any JavaScript object. So in JavaScript, everything's an object, whether it's a variable with just a piece of string like a house mouse, or if it's just an object, or if it is a multi-dimensional object that has, you know, arrays buried in values and all that kind of stuff. And the function is var JSON.stringify group 3, and here was var group 3 up here. So I made an array, and we're going to put it into the message variable after we stringify it, and it's that simple. And then what happens is the JSON flies over to the server, and the server, whatever backend language is up there, it could be a Node.js server, it might be PHP, but all of the different server languages, side languages, have a parse method, and if it's going the other direction where the JSON it doesn't really mean backwards, but in that direction. Then on our end, we would just take the JSON and do JSON.parse and make a new object out of it or do whatever we're going to do to it. So that's as simple as JSON is. In conclusion, it's a lightweight data that's been really revolutionary because it simplifies that passing of data between client and server. It's text format that's completely language independent, so it's not proprietary to PHP or any other language, and it's self-describing. So, in other words, if you're troubleshooting something, you can look at it and see what it looks like, and it's easy for humans to read or write if that were necessary. And it's based on a subset. It's actually JSON is part of the JavaScript programming language. It's part of that spec. So here's a link to some different resources, and that's pretty much that. Anybody have any questions so far?
No, you explained that really well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at a few examples. And I'll put these up on my live server. I've just got them here on my local server, but here's an example. So I've built a, one of the things they said was we want to see it work, and we don't necessarily want to see a lot of this kind of code. So I thought I need to build something that actually have a little dashboard where it basically pulls down a JSON object with all of my different principles, all 13 objectives that we're supposed to be doing. And so this is objective 3 page JSON. Like if I change that to objective 1 page, for example, loops. There's my loop JSON that I'm going to submit, and if I want to tweak it and add a different kind of car here, and say Lexus, and rerun that code, Lexus shows up here. So that's kind of what I built to get. So I've been building infrastructure before, so I haven't submitted anything yet. I don't know if you guys have, but here's my JSON sandbox that I made. So this is basically what this sandbox page does is it goes to find a page called json.html, and it reads that content into this text area right here, and then it also fires this button here, fires a little bit of code that grabs whatever's in here and runs it into this text area. So you can actually, it's kind of fun. You can test it right here and execute without having to even save or make any changes. So here's what's going on is
that
in this.
You said that's
What's that?
a local host page that you have?
Yeah, so that's my local host. I'll put this up on my live server and share a link to it so that you can kind of pull it apart if you want to. But and I need to force a refresh because I can see. Let me inspect this. One thing that's goofy about this is Chrome, even after I've saved this page, Chrome sometimes puts up a fight and I have to do a hard reload to get it to work. But anyway, so what's going on is I've taken a text object right here and I've assigned some text to it, and I can see a little bug. Let me get rid of that. And that capital N is not going to work. We've got a lowercase n. That's just that /n. It's just an escape character that makes a new line. And what I've done is say, okay, JSON stringify this object. So if you're to look at just that by itself, all that is an object with X and a value of 1 or 5 and Y that has a value of 6. And I said, okay, stringify that for me. So what I expect to see is that right there in quotes, and that's JSON. So if I run that, I can see that didn't. I'm going to rerun this code now that I fixed it, And there we go. The output was exactly what we expected to see, which was that right there. That's JSON. And then different kinds of objects. Here's an array. So this is just a hard up array where I've got different values in there. I stringify that, and this is what I would expect to see. And then here's a something of a multi-dimensional array where I have a array, and that's what I expect to see. And then, for example, a date object that I'm going to stringify. So, and there's what I would expect to get out. So I can test my output over here, and if I wanted to change the year or whatever, you can see that changing. If I make that 2018 and rerun that code, now it's 2018 over here. So, and I misspelled object. I'm seeing all kinds of bugs in my code. All right, so then on the other end, now I want to do JSON parse. So I just hand-coded some JSON, which is that right there, and said, okay, pretend like that was coming in from a server, and now I want to assign it to a variable, and then I say, okay, let's make a new variable called object, and I'm going to JSON parse the incoming JSON. So here comes the JSON. It gets stuck. So this JSON right here, gets stuck into this variable, which has now become a JavaScript object. And then I use the JSON.parse function to rip apart that JSON object, and I put those values into a new object called obj. And now I can go in and do some object.count, and I'm telling it, go to this object, go find the count portion of that, and tell me what the value of count is, and I get 42. And then I want you to go find, I didn't do that for this, I was not finished, so let's go ahead and do that. And say, go get object dot result, and output that for me. And it's true. So that's how simple the dot parse and dot stringify functionality is. Any questions about that?
No.
No.
Okay. All right.
Can you resend me the this schedule of when we're supposed to teach? I cannot.
Yeah. And that is, I cannot find it. Let me get back over here. There we go. So here's what it is. So next week is Hayden, Juan, Alex, and Lauren. You're up next week. But I'll
Thanks, Brad.
yeah.
Yes, thanks.
So I mean that wraps up this week. Hayden, glad you made it. I hope your wife's okay.
Yeah, she's pregnant and about 20 weeks in, and has some high blood pressure that they're looking at, and it's scary, but what do you do?
Well, we'll keep you in our prayers.
Thanks. Yeah, it's luckily school is a good outlet, something to kind of take your mind off with for a minute and do something productive. But no, I'm it'll be all right. But I've got HTTP requests. So basically what I'll do is I'll just copy everything you did and then present it as new information. Is my goal. I'm actually
doing a lot of that this term.
I started yesterday doing some of the work to actually pass off and submit for the class, and the parse and stringify is the last thing that I just did, and You articulate it nicely. I ended up spending like a half hour explaining like just little concepts, so that was nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brother James is pretty fast at grading too. I've already gotten some stuff back. And
Great.
yeah, sometimes the same day, sometimes it's next day.
Good. How's he grading? What grade
I got top marks, so I got 10 points on all the assignments I've done so far. So.
Cool.
There you go.
Have you submitted more than one subject in a page? You know, like let's say, did you do loops and then object creation functions like in the same submission?
No, I did them all separately.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I'm finding it's taking too much creativity to try to bunch them together. Like do this at the same time. Like who cares?
Yeah.
Some of it I was hoping to kill more than one bird, because some of it I almost can't do, you know, without, like, here's my, I'll show you my, let me show you my code for my sandbox. I thought, okay, that's got to count for something. So there's my, there. Okay, so that is my sandbox that actually drives that, and so I'm having to do an HTTP request to go get the parts that I want to stick in there. Even though I'm getting it from my own server, I'm still making a request to this directory, have to tell it to wait. And so I thought, if I just show him my loops, HTML, I'm going to actually end up showing him this stuff too. So I'm hoping to pass off like the first 4 or 5 all in one shot.
Yeah, that's what I started out with too. Something pretty similar actually.
Oh, that's cool. So you have your own local server, Brad? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this like depends on where I'm at. This one I'm developing just at localhost,
Yeah.
but I'll put it out there. I have a BradArallen.com, and I actually have a subdomain called CIT261, so that's where it'll be when it's
Okay.
live.
That's what you're doing. Okay, so you're doing your sandbox, and then you're gonna post it or publish it.
Yeah. So the end, then the end result is you can, with the same URL, you just change the query string, and you can see all my different objectives I want to pass off. So anyway.
So then all I have to do to pass is just reference the teacher to your subdomain, and like, yeah, this is how you do JSON. It's really cool.
Yeah, group 3. We it's a team effort with group 3. So
That worked.
Nice. That looks cool.
Yeah. Nice work.
anybody,
What do you do for a living,
Good
Brad?
job, guys.
during the week, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I'll probably reach out on mine because I've never heard of it before.
What do you do for a living, Brad?
I work for a company that makes diplomas for universities.
Okay.
And it's a small company, so I do write some software. I do help manage our website. I do sales. I take out the garbage. I print diplomas. Basically all of it. So yeah.
Ah,
Nice.
And
I'm just wondering where you're getting your. It sounds like you're gonna apply your knowledge a lot.
yeah, this is a lot of new stuff for me. I'm pretty excited about. I'm taking this one and the .NET
Yeah.
365 class.
Oh,
Wait,
okay.
there's the .NET class?
Yeah, they do.
What? Because that's
Wait,
all I've done.
is it
for the
on-
past
is it online?
year straight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's online.
365. It's all C#.
Yeah, I see. I live and breathe C# like all
Is
day.
that a CS class?
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. The code is CIT 365. So
Oh, it's CIT.
yeah.
Okay, because I was looking at the electives that I could take. I literally could only find 2 classes online
Ah,
that were under that list. So I was like, okay, I guess I have to do this.
So both me and the other guy, the owner of the company, we're both self-taught. And it's like I want to go back and figure out the right way to do it instead of the way we do it, you know. So
Yeah.
Well, do you have any .NET background, Brad?
most of our stuff, like we give the universities that we print for, we give them software that they connect to through remote desktop. We host it here in Heber.
Okay.
But our app is written in VB6. So yeah, we're old school. So
no, I mean if it works.
yeah, it's old school. It's like and neither one of us have like really wanted to learn. And I'm like, I have to make myself go learn these new languages. So
there's tons of cool new stuff with .NET Core makes it so much easier to approach .NET because you're not looking at all this overhead and trying to like really analyze it. It's just okay. Here's some C# for a web API. Here's a front end. Do whatever you want with it. Like it becomes a lot easier. And
I'm stoked. I'm excited about this.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, I sent you a link that will help you with your, send it through Canvas. So it'll help you figure out what you need to do. Yeah. So it's on W3 Schools. A lot of they explain it really well.
All right, everyone. I gotta get going.
Okay. I will send out a link to this video so that you can watch it if you want to again relive the experience. But we all
Lauren, did you have any questions on what you need to do?
Me?
Lauren.
No, I'm just. It seems like everyone just searching on the internet and just put together a good PowerPoint presentation, right?
That's what this class is.
Yep, that what it is.
Y'all set the bar high, so I'm a little bit nervous. I'm kind of a code newbie here, but I'll do my best, I promise. So everything in this class is very doable. It's just if you're new to it, it's a lot to wrap your head around. But like seriously, throw out questions during the week, and I'm confident we can all knock it out of the park. So. Okay.
All
right.
I'll see everyone next week.
You guys have a good night.
You too.
Everyone have a good night.
All right.
Good night.